all the cheesecakes that everybody had, that everybody baked. If anybody would have tasted Meryl's cheesecake, you would have all been running over here. I only gained about two pounds though. What?
I said no doubt.
And gluten free. So imagine that. Yes. Okay. You know, a proud papa. You know how that works. Okay. So we'll see if we can finish this. Next three Mishnayos are. Well, we'll see how far it goes. We're holding Pirkei Avos Perek Aleph again. Mishnah Tes Zayin. This previous Mishnah was Shammai and Hillel and Shammai, and those were the last of the group that we called Zugos. That we had two. One was the Nasi, one was the Rosh Hashiva. From now on, because apparently it seems like the generations are getting even weaker. That's why we had said Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. There was so many arguments between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel because they were not as strong in halacha like the previous generations. So from now on, it was just a Nasi, and the Nasi was the one. The Nasi really was like the president of the Jewish nation. He controlled much more than just the base in the Beis Medrash. He was like the leader if he had any situation that had to be taken care of. It was whether it was kedusha and just anything. So usually the Nasi were people who were descendants of David HaMelech. Rabbi Gamliel was the first Nasi after Shammai and Hillel, and he was a grandson to Hillel. Hillel, they call Hillel Hazaken because there were two Hillels. And in fact, the name Rabbi Gamliel will come up at least 3 times. That is Rabbi Gamliel. Then his grandson was called Rabbi Gamliel, and Rabbi Gamliel's grandson had a grandson called Rabbi Gamliel also. So he's called Rabbi Gamliel Hazaken. He was the first Rabbi Gamliel. And he says like this. He says something that we had once said before, actually. Asela Chorav. He used to say like this: make for yourself a teacher. Get somebody to be your teacher, your Rav. V'stalik min hasafik. And then you're going to remove yourself from things that you're not sure about. Safik is uncertainty. And don't give. There's a halacha that we're supposed to give ma'aseh. A kohen gets truma. Truma, even a single stalk, and you give it to the kohen, is enough. No matter how much you have, is enough for the kohen. In other words, not as enough for the kohen, but you don't have to give more. Before you give the truma, you're not going to eat from that. It's also in the Torah. And so you have to give first truma for the kohen, and then you have to give 10% to the Levi, and that's called Maisa. And then there's different types of Maisa. There's Maisa Ani, Maisa Sheni. One of them you eat in Yerushalayim. Every other year, there was in a 7-year cycle, the 7th year being Shemitah, you had you had to give Maisa Ani to the poor person, and then you had to give Maisa Sheni the following year. That it was fruits that you had to take up to Yerushalayim. So that's a separate thing over here. Maisa for the Levi is 10%. What happens is this guy says, I want to be a tzaddik. I'm going to give him 11%, 12%. Says Rabbi Gamliel, Al tarbela aser imodos. Don't give an excess when it comes to Maisa, because this will actually cause a problem. Now, really, it sounds like we're talking about separate things, but technically it's all this. It means all one in this Mishnah. And I'll explain how this works. We mentioned before, it said, make yourself a Rebbe and buy yourself a friend. That was one of the Mishnayos that we had earlier. So what's he repeating over here? Over here, he's talking about the physical thing. He says, if you're going to take somebody who is smarter than you, and sometimes doesn't even, when it says a Seilach Harav, doesn't mean somebody who is even in a greater level of Torah, but somebody who has Yishuv Adas, he sees something in a big picture. You go to him for advice because he's not when you're inside a situation, sometimes you look at things differently, but somebody from the outside looks at it and he sees a lot more than you see. And in that case, histalik min asafik, what's going to end up happening is that you are going to not find yourself in a place that you're going to have a lot of uncertainty, a lot of things going on in your life that you're not sure about. Now, one of the things, for example, that he's trying to say is that when you give Maisa, for example, you have a Baal Tshuva. You notice the Baal Tshuvas, they go a little bit overboard. They feel that they want to accomplish so much because they don't understand that going the middle of the route, which is the way you're going to see in a few Mishnas down the line, is the way to go. And if he goes a little bit too much to the right, and he feels he's doing a very good thing. So now let's get back to that subject that we said earlier about giving Maisa. The halacha is you're supposed to give 10% of whatever you have in your Shiva Saminam, is what you give Maisa on. You are supposed to give 10%. Now, if you give 11%, 1% is really not Maisa, because the Torah says you're supposed to give 10%. So what's going to end up happening is like this. You're going to give the Levi that extra 1%, which is not Maisa really. And it means, in effect, that the group of Tvua, the group of whatever he was giving on Maisa, this 1% never had Maisa, because he gave it as Maisa, but it never got 10% of that 1%, which means, I hope I'm not confusing, which means that the Levi will be eating something he's not allowed to be eating. And in that case, he's ruining it for the Levi. You're not by doing more, you're actually doing less. So that's what he's saying. Gamliel says, don't do what you're supposed to do. Histalik min asafik. Don't, first of all, when you are constantly in flux and you don't know what to do, and you try to overcompensate, you don't have a good life. You don't have you're constantly worried. You're like a little bit OCD or a lot of OCD. Did I do enough? Did I wash my hands enough? Should I wash my hands more? Should I overdo it? Should I do this? So he said, no, you do what you're instructed to do. And if let's go over here to this, what's happening today. If they say you should wash your hands, wash your hands. You don't have to every 4 minutes run to the sink and wash your hands again, because that's not what you're instructed to do. So your whole life you're going to be totally nervous. Am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? No. You do what you're instructed. And that's the Rav over here in this situation would be maybe the CDC, would be somebody who knows more than you know on this particular item. And that's what Gamliel is saying. And the Gamliel, he lived around the time of the Chardin. And therefore, things were happening that people weren't sure. So they didn't know what to do. So what they did was they constantly tried to overcompensate those who wanted to stay firm. And they were nervous. And by overcompensating, they were actually doing themselves harm, because sometimes you get very tired of, oh, I just can't do this anymore. And then you completely go in the reverse direction. So he says, no, you go a normal direction. People should, it's really a blueprint of how we should live normally, nothing to do with necessarily Musa. A person should just do the right thing and not totally go crazy, because when he goes crazy, you're going to find that he eventually will do less. And I'll give you another a good example, actually. What happens if somebody somebody promises he's going to give $100 to duck every single week? And you promise $100 on tzedakah every single week, you have to keep that promise. Tzedakah is the Rebbeinu Shalom. I mean, it's even if you have a machshava, the Gemara says, and you don't actually even verbalize it, it's one of the few things that if you in your mind, you have a mind to give somebody something, you should be careful, because you really have to do it. So let's say he promises $100 every week. 1 week, he makes a good money, and he gives $150. And he feels really good about himself, very nice. 2 weeks down the line, things weren't doing so well. And he says, you know what, I gave $50 2 weeks ago. I'm going to give $50 now, because I'm giving you the same amount of money. It's $100 a week. The halakha is you're not allowed to do that. Your 150 was your tzedakah of that week. And you didn't have in mind, if you would have had in mind that week I'll give you 150, but 2 weeks down the line I'll give you $50 less, that's perfectly okay. But if you gave the 150 as today's tzedakah, what you're doing is you're being very generous. You're overdoing it in a way. But at the end of the day, 2 weeks later, you're gonna in your mind, you're gonna say, oh, I gave him 150. I only have 50 in my pocket. Here's 50. It's good. No, it's not good enough. That's a very important thing to remember. And there happened to have been the Rabbi Yosef, he wrote also a sefer on on Avos, and he brings on this interesting story that happened many years ago, where what happened was there were two very very good friends, very very poor, and one of them happened to have a pocket knife, and the other guy really wanted it. He wanted the pocket knife, and the guy said, listen, I really really want this pocket knife. I'll make a deal with you. He says, we're both poor, but eventually I'm going to be rich. I know myself. I'm good. I'm going to be rich. He says, any money that I have above $10,000, I'll give you. Just give me the pocket knife. So the guy sees how much he wants the pocket knife, and he gives him the pocket knife. And fine, story forgotten. Sure enough, they grew up, and they went different ways. Each one went to different cities, and this guy actually became exceptionally wealthy. Not the guy who got the pocket knife. He got a lot more than $10,000 in his pocket at that point. Very, very wealthy. And he also was a good guy. He gave a lot of tzedakah. The other guy, Nebuch, he was a lo yitzchak. He maybe had a nice family, everything like that. But as far as Parnasu went, it didn't go. So he had to make a wedding. So we're talking obviously about 25 years later. After he grew up and he got married and he had a child and they found the shidduch already, and he needed money. He didn't have the money to make the wedding. So a friend of his who happened to know that he had this friend from younger years, he says, this guy became very wealthy. Why don't you go over to him and ask him as a good friend, maybe he can help you out with the wedding. So the guy goes to the other city and he goes and he knocks on his door and he says, how are you? Shalom Aleichem. It's fine. He says, I'm making a wedding. And because he wants, what are you doing here? I'm making a wedding. And he doesn't recognize him. And he kind of takes a sure, I'm sorry, here's $100 for the wedding. It's nice, somebody comes to collect. And the guy said, man, I didn't come for $100. I really came for a lot more money. He says, I see you don't recognize who I am, like what you did. They give yourself a hug. It's, come sit down, come inside, tell me what's going on. He says, unfortunately, I heard that you did very well. You're doing very well. And I'm unfortunately not in a great spot, and I have to make a wedding. And I really would love to help. And somehow throughout the conversation, it came up the knife. He says, remember that pocket knife? You remember that story with that pocket knife? And the other guy had totally forgotten about it. And he turned white like a sheet. And his heart started palpitating. And he tells his friend, I'm sorry, right now, somehow came over with me. I don't feel so good. Maybe you can come back tomorrow and I'll give you, we'll figure out what I want to give you and everything like that. And I'll help you out. And the guy leaves. And the other guy has no clue why he's not feeling good. And he runs into his wife in the other room after the other guy leaves, and he starts to say, oh my goodness, what a big trouble. He says, when you're rich, $10,000 is not getting you much. And he says, I'm going to give you everything above $10,000. This is what I told my friend. I have big stuff. What am I going to do? We're ruined. We're ruined. And the wife says, listen, go to the Rav. You have a situation. You go to a Rav. I'll say, look, Rav. You have a Rav. You respect him. You listen to him. He's a very smart guy. I'll give you an idea. So of course he runs out of the house and he runs to the shul and he says, Rebbe, I got to talk to you right now, and it's very, very important. And he said, so she's all depressed, takes him to his office. So how can I help you? And he tells him a story. So he says, first take a drink of water, relax. He says, the truth is like this. There's a halacha, tasmachta lekanya. If you make a deal when you're a young kid, when you're in your mind, never ever imagined that $10,000 would be even a minor amount of money, which is to you right now, and you never even thought that you'd even make more than $10,000, because obviously in those days, in your mind, $10,000 was $100 million because you didn't really have any money. So this deal you made is not is nullified. Give good faith. He says, take care of him. So the Rav says, in your heart, you have to know he's good. You should give him whatever you want. So the guy says, but he feels good. At least he doesn't have to give him. He thought he had to give him, because if he had given him everything above $1,000, he'd be technically in his mind a pauper. He goes back the next day with a friend, sits down, and comes back with a check, and he says, "Here, I want you to have this. This is for your money, for your thing, and and for your wedding, I want you to have a good life. I'm having a very good life. Give check that well $10,000. Would have been $5,000 in those days or whatever. I don't make a difference. He gives him 150, $200,000, and then he's bugging out. What what's going on here? And I appreciate it, but why are you doing this? He says, I'll tell you the truth. I'll tell you what happened yesterday, and he tells him the whole story. So he said, I went to my Rav, and my Rav made him feel good. He started with a suffix. I was totally smashed. I totally. He said, I didn't. I thought the Rav said really that what you call, like I said, asmachta lekanya, something that's called an asmachta, is something that's not sure, something that you don't know. You cannot make a bet with somebody that if I have a girl or a boy, you don't know what's going to happen, then my house will be yours. You can't do that. It has to be it has to be something here right now, something that's realistic. He says, I did it. I didn't realize it, but I still feel like I owe you, and you're my good friend. And between all of it, he said, and you didn't even ask for it because of the knife originally. You just happened to mention the story, but I felt I owe you money. So he said, I'll tell you the truth. When I gave you that knife, I totally didn't even have a clue that I was selling you the knife. You mentioned that amount of money, but I saw you were my good friend, and that's why I gave you the knife. So he says back, now I feel even better that I'm giving you all this money. So this is, first of all, I guess would come into here, buy yourself a good friend. But on the other hand, Rav made this man feel good because he saw the whole picture. He knew halacha. That's what this Mishnah, this is what the Gamliel is saying over here. Let's go on to the next Mishnah. Let's see if we can cover and maybe finish. The Perek is almost over, so let's try to see we accomplish. We lived a complete Perek of Pirkei Avos. Perek Aleph is a nice Perek. The next Mishnah is Shimon Benoi. Gamliel was the Nasi. Shimon was his son, and he took over from his father when his father passed away. So Shimon Benoi Oimer, this is what Shimon says. Interesting here. Good lesson for learning for anybody. First of all, my whole life, because he was the son of the Nasi. Now, son of the Nasi means in the Nasi's house, any issue that ever came up in town, they all came to the Nasi, sat down at the dining room table. The Nasi was very wealthy at that point that the community gave him. It was a very respectable position of Klal Yisrael. And so he always saw the Rabbanan in his house. He always watched what was going on. And Reb Shimon, in his own right, was a Tana. He was some Tana, meaning that he was able to. He had the halachas given in the Gemara itself, and he was one of the great Rabbanim of his time. So Shimon says that my whole life I grew up between Chachamim, and therefore I was able to see from A to Z what it takes to be a good man, to be a great man, and to learn from them, and to learn everything that I needed to learn from them. And yet, the greatest lesson that I learned from them is I found nothing better for my body, which is a question why he uses that term body, other than silence. First, I'm just continue what he says, and we'll come back again. And then he says, many times you have people who will sit and learn. But when it comes to doing something proper or doing something, they said, no, I'm learning, I don't have time. The medrash, the learning part is not the important part. The important part is the maisa, what you lilmoid lamed lishma velasais. The learning is to teach, to be able to learn and teach. But lishma velasais, so why are you learning is that you should be able to do the proper thing. So that's what I learned from there. First of all, the greatest lesson I had was nothing is better for myself, my body, leguf, elish sika, being silent when I'm supposed to be silent. And also, the most important, another very important thing is, whatever I learn is important to me, so that I should be able to use that to apply it to my life. Maybe hate. And then I said the silence is the most important thing. But and in reverse, if somebody goes and he just keeps talking excessively, is maybe hate. That brings upon sin. So now, first of all, why does he use the term? Usually, we're talking over here about the neshama. If somebody says something, it's not good for the neshama. It's not good for you keep talking, and you'll end up talking lashon hara, and therefore your neshama is going to get punished because it's not good for your neshama. And one avera brings another avera. So all of these things are not good. Why say go? So I saw actually from Rabbi Dr. Twersky, he's a psychiatrist, obviously, and I mean, a known psychiatrist, and he says like this. He says when a person is constantly saying, all of a sudden blurts out something, and he doesn't realize that the minute you blurt something out, you can't take it back. At the end, it's going to give him physical problems as well. It gives him, all of a sudden, oh, what did I say? So he's going to have a headache. Did I say the right thing? Did I do the right thing? I didn't think it through. And now all of a sudden his blood pressure is going up. And he's now sometimes you say to the wrong guy, you say something, he gives you a clap. You don't realize, you turn around and you see the guy is 5 times your size when you yell at somebody when you don't even know what he looks like. And you realize the situation, and sure enough, he gives you stats. And that's not good for your group. So the first thing you should know is the minute you say something, it can have detrimental effect on your physical body as well as your neshama. Now you would think, by the way, that the Chafetz Chaim, being that he wrote the master sefer on lashon hara, what you shouldn't speak, that he wouldn't speak, that he would be a very quiet man. But it was reversed. The Chafetz Chaim was an excellent conversationalist. Only thing is he knew what to talk about and how to say it. So he did speak. You're allowed to speak. He's not saying you should not speak. But when you speak first, think it through. And whenever you say something, be careful with what you're saying. That's a very, very important thing. The Chafetz Chaim also used to say that when in those days, many years back, when a person felt he did a sin, he used to fast. So he says, today's generation, this is still in the late 1800s and early 1900s, today's generation does not have the strength to fast like the previous generations. In a situation like that, he says, what they'd rather make a tiny dibur. Don't speak so much. If you're quiet, it has more effect actually, the tiny dibur to tshuva, than actual physical fasting. So he says, see, it's a play on the words. I see being silent is so much easier on my body that I don't have to fast. I could eat, but just be careful. Don't say the right things, do the right things, and do it l'shem shemayim, that you're not going. You promise you won't speak lashon hara, or you're going to be careful what you're saying. You won't talk about other people. Then that is enough. The Rebbeinu Shalom takes that as a tshuva, as if the body itself would have fasted. Then he says, and don't forget, Shimon, as I said before, he was sitting between his father. Gamaliel was entertaining all these people in his house, whatever they needed, anything. So he used to sit back and watch. He says, I never interrupted because I wanted to learn in the situation, because maybe in the back of his mind, he realized he's the next Nasi. So that's why he says also, for me, it was healthier for me, not for my neshama, as learning how to be a leader of Klal Yisrael. It was healthy for me to sit back, watch how my father handles this and how people answer him back. And that shtika helped me in my future, helped me grow into my role as the future Nasi. And that's Reb Shimon as well. Then he says, so he says like this, as I said before, we can learn and we can learn and we can learn. But the Maisa is the most important part. The whole point of learning is that you should do the right thing. There's a very famous story. I actually usually say it by my shevach of my kids about the Sanzer Rebbe. It's because my kids are Endiklach from the Sanzer Rebbe. So one of the things times is that amazing man in Torah. There was nothing in Torah he didn't know. And Rebbes usually don't have to be so much in Torah as much as Kedusha. It's a separate part. I'll explain that to you maybe another time. It's a little too long. But he used to, get a lot of people used to come to him, give him large donations to get a bracha from him, because he was was an unbelievable man. He had a tremendous kedusha, and his brachas were helped. Apparently, people came. People don't come if it doesn't help. He used to get low. His table was full of money by the end of the day. Before he went to sleep, there wasn't one penny left. Every penny he had, he gave out to Aniyim. Right behind those first people that came for the brachas were a long, long line of poor people that came to him because they needed them in the tzorchim. They needed, whatever the reason, they needed the money. So he used to give it out very generously. One day he comes to apparently there weren't that many people that came in the first place, so he had no money left. When he went to sleep, by the way, there was not a coin left in the house. And somebody comes towards the end of the day and he says, Rebbe, I have a daughter to marry off, and I just don't have any money. I just can't afford it. So the Rebbe says, I don't have a penny. He says, Rebbe, you got to help me. I came all the way from the city and I can't come traveled, and you can't let me go without any money. He says, and I'll give you an idea. He says, I'll write you a letter. He says, in a city not far from where we live here, there is one of my Hasidim who is a tremendous Talmid Chacham. I don't remember if I just said the story once. Is a tremendous Talmid Chacham. He sits in Beis Medrash the whole day. He's very respected in the city. If you show him the letter, I'm gonna tell him to go around for the rest of town. Everybody will give you large donations because he doesn't usually do this, and he's a very respected person. If he took the time out for you, he's gonna do it, and he's one of my chassidim. Sure enough, he's satisfied. He goes to the town, and sure enough, he finds him surely sitting and learning. He's sitting and learning in Beis Medrash. And he shows that I have something for you. The Rebbe gives you it's not you like, the Rebbe gives me a letter. Sure, the Chassidim, they used to even put on a hat and jacket before the Rebbe would stand up. Even it was the Rebbe's letter was Hat Kedusha. He looks at the letter, he reads it through, and looks again and reads it again, and he says, I can't help you. I can't help you. What do you mean you can't help me? I can't help you. I sit for 18 hours a day. And yet there was an expression in the yeshivas, the Bochum, those Bochum that really were successful, they used to call them an Achzener. Achzener means 18. These are the Bochum that literally learned 18 hours a day. They just stopped. They didn't even stop for meals. They ate as they were learning. And those were the Stipler was considered an Achzener. The Gedolim of previous generations was in Europe, they used to call them the Achzener. So he said, I learn 18 hours a day. I never babble. I never walk around. I don't do anything. I don't want to stop learning. There's a klal, oisik b'mitzvah, potem in a mitzvah. If somebody does a mitzvah, he doesn't have to do another mitzvah. If somebody's wearing tzitzis and he can do another mitzvah, then of course he's supposed to do it. But if somebody does a mitzvah like learning, where his whole focus has to be learning, he's halachically, you don't even have to daven. The Gemara talks about many places with the people, they didn't daven the whole day. They just stopped maybe for Kriya Shema. Even that was something. That's why in Haggadah it says, Segiya is my Kriya Shema. They were sitting learning, because for Kriya Shema they stopped. But for the red, if you're learning, technically it's oisik b'mitzvah, and it's potem in a mitzvah. Our generation, unfortunately, the way we learn, it's not to such an extent of depth that we would consider ourselves an oisik b'mitzvah, so we stop for davening. But in previous generations, I'm talking about many generations back, time of the Gemara, there were many Gedolim that did not learn daven. They learned the whole day. Literally, they just stopped for a second to do Kriya Shema. Anyway, he said, I can't do it. I'm learning. So, but the Rebbe said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. So the guy tries with the letter to go around. He says he would have come. He's learning. He wasn't successful. He goes back to the Rebbe. The Rebbe says, I'll help you a different way. And sure enough, come back tomorrow. And somehow he was able to put together some money, and he gave him the money. Came Yantif time. Usually the Hasidim all came to the Rebbe on Yantif. So Yantif, he comes to the Rebbe, this big masmid from the other town, his chassid, and the Rebbe ignores him. The Rebbe ignores him, and he goes a whole Yantif. There's a 2-day Yantif with shuas, and Matzah shuas usually go to the Rebbe for a bracha to say gesund and a bracha for the summer. I'll see you on Rosh Hashanah. And the Rebbe, and he tells the Rebbe, I know you're upset at me. But the Rebbe should know that it's a real, but my time, my excuse is a very good excuse. I was the nice Rebbe. The Rebbe knows. I don't waste a minute. I couldn't stand up from the Gemara. So the Rebbe tells him, we see in the parsha that Yaakov Avinu fought with the Malach. And it says, V'yavek ishimai. V'yavek, that's the term that Torah uses. V'yavek ishimai. There was a malach that was fighting with him. It says ish. So the Rashi says, who was fighting with Yaakov. Who is this Vayavik Ish Imai with Yaakov? Imai means Yaakov. Vayavik means fighting. Ish of man, Imai with Yaakov. Says Rashi, Sarah Shel Esav. This was the Sarah of Esav, was fighting with Yaakov Avinu. And now there's a whole Indian of why it was him. It had to do with future generations. Very deep stuff. So it says Vayavik Ish, and Rashi says Sarah Shel Esav. The next week, it says by Yosef HaTzadik, it says Yosef got lost when his father sent him to find the brothers. And the father, and he, as he's in the field, it says, V'yimtza'ehu ish, a man found him, and he asked him, Ma ata tavakesh, what are you doing? He said, I'm looking for my brothers. That's what Yosef answered. Says Rashi, who, it says ish, V'yimtza'ehu ish, says Rashi, who is ish? Is Malach Gabriel. So ask the sons of Rebbe to this man, how did Rashi know this? Here it says just Ish, and it says it means Esav. So over here it means Ish, and it means the Malach Gabriel. Malach Gabriel is the one that helps people. He says, how did Rashi know this? He says, I'll tell you how Rashi knows this. Yaakov Avinu won the Malach, and he said, please give me a bracha. What did the Malach say? I can't give you a bracha now. Today is the only time in my history that I am going to say, once in the history of every Malach, he has the ability to go before the Kisei HaKavod and say, Baruch Shem Kol Malchus Eloheinu. It says, Vayiba Boik, it's the morning, it's my morning, I got to go. He says, all he wanted was a bracha. Give him that 1 second bracha and then go do what you have to do. He said, what by Yosef, what does it say? V'yimtza'ehu ish. A man found him and asked him, what are you doing? He went over to him, how could I help you? Is somebody like that is a Malach Gabriel. He says, a man comes to you, he says, I'm desperate. I need tzedakah. I give me a few minutes of your time, go around. It's going to take you 15, maybe a half an hour. And then you go back to your thing, you make it up a half an hour later. He says, no. You just said, no, it was more important for you to sit there. He says, this is what he's saying over here. When you're learning, it's good that you're learning. You should be learning. You should do whatever you're supposed to be doing. But the Maisa is the ikar. He says, you are 100% wrong, even though you're the big Talmud Chacham. You should know that the most important thing is how could I, ma'ata tevakesh, what the Malach Gabriel asked. How could I help you? But this is a Mir Hashem, the way we're going to finish over here. And we hopefully learn with the fact that helping somebody else is most important in Klal Yisrael. Thank you very much. Have a very good day.
Thank you so much.